All right, guys, welcome back to the next episode of Pest Control Millionaire. Today, I got one of my good friends, Shane Dietrich. I met him a while back. Where were we? Were we in Florida?
Yeah, we're Power.
Yeah, we're at Power Conference. That was a lot of fun. We can chat about that today. But I got to know Shane. He's a really good guy. I got to ask him a lot of questions because he knows a lot about stuff that I don't know. And so I just found it super fascinating, the things that he does. But he actually owns Critter Control in South Bend, and he's actually just opened up his second Critter Control franchise in, what town is that? Benton Harbor, Michigan?
Benton Harbor.
Cool. And Shane, he has 3 boys. He's going to talk to us about that here in a little bit, and he's married. And he's been in the pest control industry for a really long time. He mainly focuses on wildlife, obviously. That's not my realm, so I just figured we'll pick his brain and we'll speak to all the wildlife people out there. And I'm excited about this one because like I said, you own a franchise, you're a franchisee, so we can talk a little bit about that, which a lot of people, they ask questions about it. So I can ask those questions for them on here and answer the questions that they may have. So let's get rolling. So Shane, first tell us how you got into the pest control industry.
Man, kind of a crazy story.
We love good stories.
Yeah, man. So I was working for another franchise-based company, but I was on the franchisor side. Professional commercial cleaning company where we sold franchises, we sold commercial cleaning contracts, and then we sold those commercial cleaning contracts to our franchisees. So I did that for a long time. I found that I really enjoyed helping people build businesses, and I really liked the franchise model. So that kind of led me to look for other opportunities kind of in the realm of franchising. I wasn't in a position at that point to go into business for myself, or at least I didn't think I was. So I started looking for a new position, crazily enough, because my current boss at the time wouldn't give me a $3,000 a year raise. And man, I'm really happy he didn't. Yeah. So I ended up finding a different Critter Control. A gentleman he's the largest franchisee for Critter Control. At the time, he owned 9 different franchises that spanned New Jersey, 4 locations in Michigan, 3 in Wisconsin, and 1 in Indiana. So I onboarded with him and as a sales guy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And I went to work, man. That first year did just under $1 million in sales, kind of proved myself to him and just grew with the company from there. And that was my introduction into the pest control / wildlife world.
Cool. And then how long have you been doing it since then?
Man, I started with that franchisee in 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And I rolled with him for about 4 years. And at the end of our relationship, it was more of like I was kind of looking for something more. He was kind of looking for something different, and his company was going a different direction. And by that time, I had worked myself into a sales management role and was kind of overseeing all the sales at all of his franchises. And so I couldn't go back to doing something, something more mundane. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I love sales to death. I've done door knocking to corporate sales, to, like I said before, selling franchises. And so I love it, but I couldn't bring myself to go back to doing that for somebody else. And it was time to do something for myself. And I was fortunate enough that my previous boss and I had a good enough relationship that he introduced me and vouched for me for the franchisor of Critter Control, and said, "Hey, man, this is a good opportunity. Go after it." So that's how I ended up owning mine.
That's cool. So you were living in what town at that time? Were you in Milwaukee, Madison?
Waukesha, so right in between Milwaukee and Madison.
Yeah. And then so you don't actually operate in Wisconsin, though. You operate in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, so and that's the grind, man. I absolutely love it. It's a love-hate relationship, right? I love the fact that I'm in business for myself. I hate the fact that I have to drive 3.5 hours to my territory. So essentially what I'm doing, and God bless my wife, because she takes care of everything on the home front while I'm gone. But man, I drive down to South Bend, Indiana on Sunday, and it's about 3.5 hour drive for me there. I stay there till Thursday, come back, and spend a few days with my family and do it all over again. I've been doing that since I opened the doors.
Do you have a house down there? Do you just rent a place? Do you stay in a hotel?
I have a house that we rent down there. So, man, when I first started the business, it was me and my cousin Dan, and I started the business. He came with me to go pick up some supplies in Traverse City, Michigan. And after I picked up some supplies, we went down to my territory, South Bend, and we literally stayed at a Comfort Suites. I worked out a deal with them, and I lived out of a hotel room or worked out of a hotel room for the first 2 months that we ran the company. And just every day we'd work from sun up to sundown, go back to the hotel room, do all of our computer work, our follow-up, everything like that. And then do it all over again the next day.
It's kind of funny because a lot of people like think of, if you were to wake up and drive 3.5 hours and then stay some place that you've never really been before, you don't know anyone there really, and you're sitting in a hotel room. Like you and I have that same exact experience. Like that's how I started my second location in Appleton. I was literally driving every single day down there, come back home, but then the next year I was literally staying in a hotel room every single night. And then I started getting more guys. They stayed in hotel rooms every single night. So it gets expensive, so that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned. Like, that's just rent a place, So we ended up renting a place because we're there long term now. So, but like, talk about that's not easy to do. You're leaving your family, you're getting into a new market. Like you said, you don't know anyone. How do you start? Like, where did you even go to like get your client? What'd you do?
So that's the beauty of, I guess, a franchise-based business model is that you start out and the name is already kind of out there. And the name Critter Control really, really helps with advertising.
Yeah.
So you've got this multi-billion-dollar corporation, Rollins Incorporated, that is the backer or the owner of Critter Control.
Yeah.
And they've got people in place that do a really good job of marketing that to the masses. So it's part of that franchise when you purchase a package is that they do your advertising. Part of that franchise fee that you pay when you initially start, there's a designated dollar amount. For me, it was $5,000 that went directly towards advertising for me, for Google My Business and keyword searches and all SEO, all that fun stuff, and my social media pages, all that. So that really, really helped was that I had, somebody there who's been there, done that, and kind of guided me through that process and helped me through that process. So,
right on. So when you got down there, did you already have jobs lined up for you at that time?
So Critter Control of South Bend was corporate owned, was a franchise-based region for many years. And then the then franchisee sold or something happened with that region went back to corporate.
Yep.
So corporate ran that region for about 2 years before I took it over. They were doing about a $250,000 a year out of it. I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but around there. So there was a book of business, and it was all one-time revenue. They had very little reoccurring, maybe like 10 reoccurring bait station customers, things like that. So I walked in the door, and I probably had 8 to 10 customers that were bait station customers. And I think there were two trap jobs that were already going that I literally just went and checked traps for a couple of days, and they'd already paid corporate for it. So it was already kind of a done deal.
Right. Which, having 8 customers doesn't really help pay your bills though.
Not at all, my friend. It was a hustle, man, and it, like I said, so the phone was ringing. Man, I'm sure every business owner that listens to this podcast will go through this or has gone through this. It's you're working on a roof, your phone is ringing in your pocket, your other phone from your family's ringing in the other pocket, your customer's on the ground yelling up at you, trying to figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it gets crazy and hectic at first, man, but I love that. I love thriving in chaos. But I quickly learned that, listen, if we're going to be successful and we're going to grow this business, I need somebody else answering these phones. I need somebody else to be on these roofs with me at least. And I'm figuring out now that I need somebody else in the field to be the face of my company and starting to do some sales.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it does help that obviously he had a really big sales background, and then going into a new market. Like, I think that's where the best franchisees are. They're going to be sales guys for the most part, or, you know, entrepreneur driven, that can go open up a new market and, you know, do it on your own. But like I said, so when your phone's ringing, do they have a call center built out for you guys, or you're literally answering all your phone calls yourself?
We answer all of our phone calls ourselves. There is some talks from what I hear through the grapevines that there might be an option for a call center at some time in the future. But essentially what happens is we set up all of our own phones and our phone numbers. Mm-hmm. And I've been in business long enough to know that I need some sort of professional sounding phone answering. Yeah. So I went to, of all places, man, I went to my cell phone carrier, and I use just shameless plug, I use Verizon, who's done a really good job for us. And they've got this app called One Talk where they call a central phone number, and I can record a message and say, hey, press 1 if you're a new customer, press 2 if you're an existing customer. And so I recorded that message, and both 1 and 2 rang to my phone, but it sounded nice to my customers.
Yeah, that's awesome. You felt bigger than we actually were. That's great.
Yeah, man, it was it was just a way that I knew I needed to, if I'm going to be professional and I'm going to run a professional business, I need to act the part. Yeah. So regardless of where that phone call went to, it needed to sound professional. My customers called it.
Yeah. Take me back to the day that you showed up in South Bend. Like, what, I mean, you must have been like a deer in the headlights.
Man, so the first day that I ever showed up in South Bend, wasn't hotel rooms, man. It was a campground. I didn't have any money. I just spent every penny to my name that I could anyways on purchasing a franchise and getting into the business. And so I had nothing. I paid $30 for a campsite for 2 days and was literally in my critter control truck and a tent at a local campground. And you get up in the butt crack of dawn because the tent starts to get either really hot or really cold. Yeah. And you get out there and you just start making stuff happen. You go drive around. You go, you go to local Home Depot, Menards, Lowe's, whatever, and you go sit in a parking lot and you just say hi to people, or you go walk around the store and maybe strike up a conversation with somebody that looks like might be, valuable to you or your business, and maybe that person is an asset to you in that they're looking for a new position, and maybe they're looking to start up with somebody. So that's what I did, man. I went and knocked on some proverbial doors and just found people to talk to and just tried to get the name and the image out there. Hey, we're here.
That's some guerrilla marketing at its finest. But like you said, you don't have a lot of money at that time. You don't have no other option. Like, you're there. You have to make it work. You don't have plan B. Your back's up against the wall. You just have to go to work, right?
Exactly it, man. And you got a wife at home who believes in you enough that she stays home with your kids and takes care of them. And like I said, holds down the home front. And then you got 3 boys at home who are sacrificing time with their dad to have him gone. I mean, it's not optional.
No,
I have to do it.
And, being a stay-at-home mom is probably the hardest job out there. Like,
man.
Like, you have to get your hats off to her. Like, we all know what that's like. I love my kids. They're upstairs as we speak, but I couldn't do it every day. I love them to death, but I got things to do, and thank God, for their mother and all the help that they bring along. It's couldn't do without them for sure. So
absolutely,
you have to give them a shout out once in a while. So without them, we couldn't do it.
They deserve it more than we give them. That's for sure.
Yeah. So then, so that was your first day, in the first few days. But then, when did it start? When did it start like moving and shaking? When did you start, lining up some jobs? And
I opened the doors of my franchise August 1st of last year. So it was probably the first couple of weeks was the toughest. Obviously, like I said, we upgraded from campgrounds to hotel rooms because we got a little money in the bank, and we're like, all right, cool. So we can instead of renting a $30 campsite, we can rent an $80 hotel room. And it was just a grind. I remember specifically, this is probably a week into the business. Me and my cousin were in the parking lot of a Culver's, and I told him, I said, listen, man, as soon as we get some money in the bank, we'll grab some food, because you're in a hotel room. Also, we got some microwave. We lived off $1.50 pot pies and ham sandwiches, and that's no joke.
Yeah, did they have a good breakfast for you guys at least?
No, they had a terrible breakfast. It was we called them triangles. They were the most terrible omelet, like eggs with a little bit of cheese in the middle.
Yeah.
I couldn't even eat them. They were terrible. So we lived off of that stuff. But I remember being in a Culver's parking lot, man. We finally got a little bit of money in the bank, like I said, and all right, we're gonna treat ourselves on Wednesdays. That's going to be our going out nights. So our going out night was Culver's. So we're in Culver's parking lot. We're about 2 cars away from the speaker. Super excited. We're going to get a butter burger. And we get a phone call from a lady who's got a mouse inside of her house. And man, I'm trying to explain to her that, listen, I can help you, but there's no possibility that I'm going to come out there and catch this mouse right now. And she's like, well, you got to come here. You got to come here. You got to come here. And mind you, we're probably talking about 9:00. And finally I give in. I say, okay, here's a price. I'll come out for this. And she's like, I'll pay it. Let's go. All right, cool. Let's go. So we left Culver's parking lot. We didn't get our food. We drove back to the hotel, put our uniforms back on, and finally got to her place about 11:00 at night. Walked around the inside of her house and basically said, hey, look, there's no mice in here anymore, at least not visible to the naked eye. I'd love to do an inspection for you tomorrow and we'll go from there. And she paid us for coming out. She was extremely grateful. I was glad to be there for her. And we just kept going. So, you talk, first couple of weeks were like that. And then we just started to grow, man. We ended up getting a lot of phone calls. Like I said, we had some good marketing behind us, and man, we just went to work and started selling like crazy. And in our first August 1st. So from August 1st to the end of the year, we picked up just over $300,000 in business.
God, that's a good story.
Which was, man, I loved it. It was incredible for me. It's not what I expected, but man, that all the credit goes to my team. All I did was provide opportunities, and they took them and ran with them.
Yeah, but you took the risk too, and they believed in you. So you must have showed them some good leadership and some good vision. I actually posted a quote to my Instagram this morning, and it actually resonates with this. And it says, "The pain of sacrifice is temporary, but the pain of regret is forever." And so you would have and it's so true. Like, yeah, you stayed in a tent for a couple of days. You stayed in a hotel, had zero money, living off eggs and sandwiches, and then then the next 3-4 months you went and sold $300,000 in revenue, which is, it's an amazing story. So I appreciate you for sharing that, and I think that's going to be very impactful for the group that's listening too, because if you just work hard and you go out there and put get your back against the wall and give it all you got, you're going to be successful. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it's hard.
Agreed.
It's super hard. And the people that aren't business owners that might be listening to this that want to, it's not going to be easy. Nothing's easy. Nothing in life, at least, that's worth it is easy. But
I agree with that,
if you
man.
just go all in, man, give it all you got, you're not going to fail. And if you do, who gives a shit? Right. At least you try. But in this case, like you said, you worked your ass off. You built a successful business now, and again, you're opening up your second franchise, so it's super cool. So congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah, I don't remember where I heard it from, but somebody once said, "Choose your hard." Right? Going to the gym is hard. Mm-hmm. So is being overweight and having diabetes and stuff like that. Going to work 9 to 5 every day, that's hard too. Mm-hmm. Being a business owner is hard. It's really just choose your hard, and if you really want something, just go after it and make it happen.
For sure. So again, wildlife's not my background. And we're going to switch gears a little bit. I kind of just and a lot of people listen to just our lawn care, pest control. Might not do a little bit or any of the critter control or wildlife or things like that. So just kind of tell us what a critter control does, what the wildlife side of the business looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So critter control in general is kind of an all-encompassing. I can do pest control. I can do ornamental control if I would like to, and it's obviously based around wildlife.
Mhm.
So one of the most interesting things to me is the reoccurring revenue model, and
Mhm.
I'm toying with a few ideas on how to build that into the wildlife side of the business. But the reason I was at Power was because I know the power of reoccurring revenue and pest control.
Mhm.
But so I also understand the power of cash flow and having money in the bank, and that's really what the wildlife side provided for me.
Yeah.
Some immediate capital to then grow a business. So I think that's what's really important to me about the wildlife side. The most, the coolest part about it, anyways, is the instant cash, influx that you get from it, or you can get from it.
Yep.
So, Critter Control in general is more of a wildlife based company, and man, it's so fun. Putting on your cape in the morning and going to be somebody's hero every day is pretty incredible, man. Most people are afraid of wildlife, and they just don't want to deal with it. So it's almost like you walk in the door and they want to hug you because you're there, because there's a bat inside their living room or a raccoon above them at night. That's
Yeah.
sounds like they're moving furniture.
Yeah.
So,
So
and
then,
house. Go ahead, man.
no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say how pretty much all houses are the same, man. But every animal is different. Every animal has a personality. So it's like dealing with the animals is kind of fun.
Yeah, I can't imagine it being too much fun, but whatever floats your boat, I suppose. So okay, so you go there. Let's say there's a raccoon in the attic, or skunk or whatever. What I guess, what do you deal with most down in your locations?
So most of the time it's raccoons, bats, squirrels, mice, um, skunks, the occasional skunks. A lot of our business is built around um, exclusion work.
Yeah.
So if animals have broken into somebody's house, I'm not your trapper. I rarely trap animals. Groundhogs is about the only thing we trap.
Gotcha.
Skunks too, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, I focus more on, and I tell my customers this too, and this is great for anybody that's listening, is that the animal is only the symptom of the
Yeah.
problem,
Yeah. I
right?
agree with that. Yeah.
Same with pests,
Yep.
right? Usually, if there's pests inside your home, it's just a symptom of the problem, which is that there's access into the home somewhere. So we really, really focus on solving the problem instead of addressing the symptom. So yes, we get rid of the animal. We do that with one-way door devices most of the time. Typically, we won't be trapping anything, and then we make repairs to the home in order to keep that animal out. Um, and it's the one-way door device versus trapping. There's probably a ton of debate that could be had on
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
in my opinion, I fully believe that it's the least stressful way on me as a business owner, on my employees, on the animal, and on the homeowner. So that's really what I'm looking for, is kind of a low stress situation for all parties involved, and that seems to be the best route for us.
And probably the least stress on the animal itself too.
Absolutely, and that's huge for us. We're humane wildlife
Yep.
removal, and making sure we're doing things correctly is one of our biggest things.
So how do you ensure that the animal gets out? How do you know that it left?
So we use their natural instincts against them. So things like, they got to eat and they got to drink water, just like you and I do every single day. Now, having said that, animals will stay in homes for days on end and not come out. So there's a few different ways that you can determine whether an animal is left. You can flag the one-way door so that
Mm.
if it opens, something moves. A lot of people have used Arlo cams and other types of cameras to monitor their one-way doors. Typically, the homeowner is going to be your best form of figuring out whether that animal's gone, because they're used to hearing that thing every single night, every single day, every other day. And you call them 3 days later and say, "Hey, how's it been?" And they say, "Man, you're a lifesaver. I can go to sleep again. Things are quiet." I say, "Great. I'm coming to take the one-way door off, and I'm ready to collect the final payment at that point."
For sure. So you just go there, take the one-way door off, finish your little exclusion work, and that's it.
Yeah, so visit one, install the one-way door, and install the other additional areas, or install the additional protection you've quoted on all the other areas. That's kind of the beauty of the exclusion device instead of trapping too, is that it's really easy to go in and talk to a homeowner about prevention at that point. Say, hey, listen, the guy's going to come out. He's going to want to get back into his home, him or her, I should say. They're going to want to get back into their home, and the next viable place is right here, and then it's right here, and then it's right here. So here's everything I'm going to do for you to guarantee that this animal never gets back in your home.
And then where does typically that animal go? To the next house?
I hope it's the neighbor's house. Shamelessly. I mean, that's the other beauty of one-way door systems is you now have an animal that knows and is trained that homes are good places to live. And not that I wish anything upon anybody, but that animal is going to likely go in and make another home its home. And then we train them and we keep them going house to house to house. It's
there you go.
No, it's typically that animal is either going to do one of two things. It's either go find a place to live that it should, which should be in a hollowed out tree if it's a raccoon, or out in the woods, or whatever the case may be. Or it's going to find another home to get back into, and hopefully that customer becomes my customer as well.
Yeah. So is there like a guarantee that you give the customer?
Absolutely. So here's kind of the reoccurring model that I'm toying with here is that warranties are renewable.
Yep.
So yeah, I provide a guarantee that the animal's gone, and a renewable warranty that the customer gets. And what I'm trying to toy with is a almost like a monthly subscription plan for warranties. So here at the end of the job, here it is. Instead of me calling you in a year and saying, hey, it's $250 to renew your warranty, here's a bill or an invoice, $20 a month. We'll just auto charge your card and you're good until that card doesn't get charged anymore.
Yeah, that's great.
Here's one of my terrible critters.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
So when you do trap them, what do you do with them? Do you have to drive them to the next place and let them free? What do you have to do there? I don't know the laws down there. So what?
Yeah, it's really dependent on what kind of critter you catch. Some we have to euthanize by law. Some we can release with landowner permission within the same county. Typically, the main rule is you're really, unless you're going to euthanize, you really shouldn't be crossing county lines with animals.
Right.
It's pretty much what it boils down to. But again, we really, really try to either find a place to release these animals, or we try to use exclusion devices as much as we possibly can. Cool. Just again, so I don't have to deal with that, and so I don't have to worry about the laws. And oh my gosh, we were in this county and we crossed over by 2 streets into this county and released this farm. This animal on this farm we have permission to release on, and we end up getting ourselves in trouble. So. Again, low stress on us.
For sure. But I mean, I would assume that the close rate on these type of jobs has got to be pretty high, because like I said, they want this taken care of as soon as possible. So the sooner you get there, you're going to close these things. There's got to be a pretty high close rate, I'd assume, right?
Yeah, man, at least for me. I mean, I don't know what the industry average is. I'm sure there's some industry experts that could tell us what the average close rate is. But, man, in the wildlife world for me and in my area, we're closing anywhere from 80 to 90% at an average of about $2,200 a job.
I figured that. That's super high profit margins too for you as well. So like I said, it's a cash cow for sure.
That's it's the fuel that feeds the fire, man. It's like I said, I love reoccurring revenue. It takes a lot of customers. It takes a good customer base to really start paying some bills and getting some of that influx of cash. But so there's something to be said for that. By all means, that's what makes businesses worth money. But I saw critters and wildlife as the fuel that could fuel my fire while I build out that customer base.
Yep, super awesome. So you've been doing this for 6 or 7 years, so you probably have some really good stories about animals in general. One, have you ever got sprayed by a skunk?
I don't know if you can hear me knocking on the wood.
I did.
I have not. Thankfully, when I was with my previous employer, I was in sales, so it's rare that I had to deal with skunks. I came close once, and it was on a Sunday, and my previous boss kicked my butt because of it. I got a random call on a Sunday. We're off on Sundays. We don't work. But I got a random call to my phone. Says I got a couple skunks in my window well. They're spraying each other. I need them gone. And I'm new. I'm like 2 weeks in, and I'm like, I'm going to prove myself. Watch this. I'm going to go out on a Sunday, and I'm going to get $500 for the company and take these two. So I'm sitting here thinking, how am I going to do this? So I grabbed a tarp out of my garage and a catch pole, put it in my truck, and I cut about a 2-inch slit in the there. And mind you, I know everyone listening to me like, just put a board in there, they'll climb out themselves. That wasn't an option. So I cut a little slit in the tarp and put my catch pole through the tarp, looked down in, put my, got the noose around it, put the tarp over, zipped it, pulled it up into the tarp itself, released the catch pole. I ran one direction in hopes that the skunk was going to run the other direction. And I had to do this twice. So it sprayed, of course, and not me, but into the tarp. So I'm glad I had that. And so I had to go do it again. And as I walked over the snow at that time, it obviously got all over my boots. So at the end of the day, I think I charged them either $3.99 or $4.99 to come and get these two skunks out. And I basically ruined a $130 catch pole, my $150 pair of boots, and a $50 tarp. So at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure we lost money.
But you got to wear your cape that day, like you said. You're a superhero. That's
exactly it, man. Sometimes I guess it's always about the customer and helping people, right? But you got to be profitable while you do it.
That's for sure. Any other crazy stories that you can remember?
Man, there's a bunch. I've been up on ladders looking in squirrel holes and have them jump out onto me, bounce off of me onto a roof or onto a tree. I've had them jump over my shoulder and land on customers' cars. I remember being in an attic once and removing some kits from an attic space, and they were down inside of a wall about 2.5 feet down. Now my arms are about 2.5, maybe 3 feet long. And so I'm fingertipping these things, and I'm shoulder deep in a wall cavity, and I'm trying to get these kits, and they're talking, and here comes the female raccoon, and I just see her out of the corner of my eye, and mind you, I'm shoulder deep in a wall cavity in an attic that's probably about 2 feet tall, and I'm thinking to myself, what have I done? What am I getting myself into?
So she came from the opposite way, like she was outside and she heard you, so she came in?
She must. I think what it is I think I got up there, and when we get into an attic space, these animals take off, whether their young is there or not. They're hiding from us. Yeah. So they get down into the soffit typically, and they'll hang out in there until I'm gone.
Yeah.
So the exception to that rule is when you're messing with young. So
yeah,
as I'm shoulder deep in this wall cavity, the young start chirping, and the female raccoon comes up, and I feel like she's this far away from me, 2 inches away. She's probably a few feet away from me, and she's stomping her front paws and hissing at me and barking at me, and she never actually came up and attacked or did anything crazy like that, as I assume they wouldn't. But, they're wild animals, so you never know. But yes, at the end of the day, we got the job done. We got the kits out, moved them to a drop box outside, and ended up excluding the female. So it worked out.
That was my next thing that I was going to talk about is the drop boxes. Like, Dalton's over here probably looking at me all weird. What's the drop box? I know what they are. I know why you do it. Just kind of explain that because it's super cool.
So essentially what we're doing is we're taking the young out of the attic space. We're putting them in an enclosed box, maybe with a hole in it, and we take them outside and we put them in a safe area for the female animal to come out and retrieve the young. Again, for a couple of different reasons. One, we're not out here to sabotage animals and kill animals. That's not what our industry is about. Our industry is about separating animals from humans as much as we possibly can. So it's a safe, effective way, and it's a cruelty-free way to reunite the young with the female animal. So doing that is important to me, as much as we possibly can. There's obviously going to be situations where the female doesn't come back. Sometimes I've run into situations where the female may have been, hit by a car or something like that, and we're taking the young from the attic space because the female hasn't been back, or hasn't come back to retrieve them. Then we do our best to rehab those, or we don't personally rehab them, but we take them to rehabbers as much as we can. We make donations to our local haws and our local rehabbers to try and make sure that they have the funding to rehab animals. And typically when you do that, they tend not to say no to the animals who bring them. But we don't do it very often. We try again. We do our best to make sure that they get reunited at the end of the day. What's
a haws?
Haws is like Humane Animal Welfare Society. So it's like, I don't know. I guess I shouldn't assume it's called the same everywhere, right? Because it's probably not. It's just like Humane Society for, there's a wildlife sections of them, and then there's obviously domestics like cats, dogs, things like that. So if you find one that has a wildlife, division to it, I always tend to do that, and just donating to those can really, really help them, save some of the wildlife. And that's not even just wildlife we work with. That could be anything from, I've seen bald eagles at these places to, deer, red-tailed hogs, predatory bird. I mean, anything.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Now I kind of want to switch gears again and talk to you about the franchise. I know a lot of people, we get a lot of questions about franchises, whether they're good, bad, and I'm sure there's all the above in between. There's lots of pros, lots of cons. But let's start out with why you chose to go with a franchise. And I know why, looking back, knowing what I know now, I probably would have done the same thing because, again, it would have saved me so much time, probably 6-8 years of my life trying to figure it out on my own. So going back, okay, if I could do it all over again, what would I do? That's honestly probably where I would start too. But give me some examples of why you chose, and ultimately why you chose to go with franchise.
Gotcha. So again, man, I come from a franchise background. My job before moving into the pest control and career control world was with on the franchisor side of things. So I saw people who probably could have never started a business on their own come in and be successful. Just people who knew how to grind, who knew how to work hard. They didn't know their systems or anything. Their ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to business, but they knew how to work. And so they came in and were shown how to run a business successfully. They got a blueprint. And that's really what I wanted. Yeah. I kind of knew the industry from being in it. I knew how critter control operated. I knew the standard, ROI. So it was, I knew what to expect. And I knew that if all I had to do was go in and replicate and repeat the exact same thing that I had already been doing. I was just going to do it for myself instead of somebody else. Now I make that sound really, really easy, right? There's a lot more I find out that there's a ton more back end stuff that I had no idea what was going on. But yeah, I mean, essentially a blueprint that I could follow to be successful. And from being in the franchisor world and on the franchisee side of things, it's a great tool to allow someone who hasn't ever run a business before, or maybe is unsure on how to get things started and how do I do advertising, how do I handle a customer, what's a CRM, how do I do all of this stuff, and they're there to train you how to do all of that, what all that is, and kind of help you along the way. So
one of the biggest things that I see online or anyone talk about is they always say, yeah, well, it's cheaper for me to go start a business myself than a franchise.
Sure.
And I know what I would say to that. What would you say to that?
It's cheaper for me to be out in the field doing my own sales too.
Absolutely.
It's cheaper for me to be out there doing my own work. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you want to grow something and be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, you have to understand that sometimes the cheapest option isn't always the best option. And maybe it is for you. It's not for you and I, obviously, Jonas,
Yeah.
but for some people, it may be the best option. Hey, if you're comfortable doing that and you're not really into growing beyond yourself, then hey, man, more power to you. There's a lot of people that make a great living doing things just with themselves.
Yeah. And with what I would say to those people is like, yeah, it is cheaper, right? You can go buy your, materials for a couple $1,000 and equipment a couple $1,000, and then you start figuring it out. Yeah. Let's just say a franchise fee, easy numbers, is 50 grand. You're like, okay, well, I can go spend 20 on equipment. It's cheaper, right? But then you have to go figure out the business. And then you're bouncing your head off a wall, like you said, trying to figure it out for 3 years. Was it really worth it? Probably not, because now 3 years later, you're probably doing 180, maybe 200,000 if you're lucky in revenue, if you're lucky and if you're good. Where if you take that $30,000, invested it into the franchise itself, they teach you all the SOPs, they teach you the marketing, they teach you how to set up your entire business so you're successful from day one. Now, let's say in those same 3 years, you're doing $1 million or 800,000 in revenue. Was it really worth it? Because basically that other $30,000 is investing in yourself and the systems and how to grow the business. So that's what I would say to those people. So I don't own a franchise. I started on my own, so I'm coming from personal experience. Like the first 6-7 years, I had to figure it out on my own. I didn't know how, but like you said, it gives you that $30,000 blueprint. Like, okay, I know how to do this thing. All I have to do is go out there and replicate and work hard, and that can be successful. Yeah. So those are the pros of a franchise. What do you say the cons of a franchise are? And like, if you see someone that did fail, that was a franchisee, why did they fail? I know it's kind of a 2-part question, but I'm sure you've seen.
To answer the first part, man, the cons to a franchise is always going to be that there's royalties, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the con to it. You're always going to be giving away a percentage of your business to your franchisor for the ongoing. And there's a lot of things involved in that, right? So they maintain all of our websites, they maintain a bunch of stuff for us. So that's the con. You're always giving a certain percentage away to your franchisor. The other cons too is there's certain things that there's MOS, minimum operating standards, that you have to abide by. There's certain things that you have to do, and your franchise can be taken away if you do not follow those. So, but that's kind of a pro as well.
Yeah, I agree.
So I really turn that around as a pro, right? So I'm required to
just put stuff on your door, as far as marketing goes, your name.
Yeah. I mean, everything. So they have you're giving up some control, which is the con, but it's a pro in my eyes because it's some of the control that maybe I wouldn't be as good at. And they've had 40 years to figure it out. They've quite literally been in business longer than I've been alive. Mm-hmm. So I want that 40 years of experience saying, hey, this is the way. This is the way. So that's kind of the con side of it, is that you're giving up some of that power, you're giving up some of that revenue, but it ends up turning into a pro at the end of the day because I get so much out of it.
You're paying royalties, like you said, for their doing your marketing, education, I'm sure is in there. All that stuff. It's just, like, we do the same thing. It's still a percentage of our revenue that we have to give to a marketing team or to a mentor or something to coach us along the way. So it's no different, really. Like you said, it just speeds up your process, and they already have those people in place.
And here's the coolest part, man, is that they're hiring and paying people that I could never hire or pay.
They're
not right now.
Yeah, they're $180,000 people that are doing doing their marketing. Yeah, so I agree. You pay your royalties, pay for a portion of that team member.
Exactly. And it's at the end of the day, I fully believe that it ends up saving me money than going to figure out, I've got Rollins Corporation, who's a multi-billion-dollar business, doing my marketing for me, essentially. Somebody there is doing my marketing for me. And I pay them, and it's a percentage of the spend that I have. So depending on how much I spend on advertising, they get a percentage of that. And man, it's worked out really, really well for me. And it saves me the hassle of going through, what I see people post online all the time, which is who's the next? I had a bad experience here. This guy did nothing, took 3,000. So at the end of the day, it ends up just, I feel like it saves me money and saves me a bunch of time.
100% time. It probably saved you 5 or 6 years, for real.
Yeah. No joke.
But I'm sure you've seen some franchisees fail through your process? Like, and if they did, what do you think the reason is? I put all the weight on the person, but what are some stories that you've seen?
It honestly is, man. And I haven't seen a ton of these franchisees fail. I haven't seen a bunch of Critter Control franchisees fail. I've seen a couple of them fail, and it's because of the person.
Yeah.
It's because they refuse to follow the blueprint that's been put in front of them. It's a fail-proof blueprint if you follow it and if you run with it and you take the things that have been learned over the last 40 years and really, really embrace the fact that they're there to help you and not to constrain you.
Yeah.
So that's typically why I see that's why I've seen the few franchisees fail inside of Critter Control. And the other thing, on the other side of things, when I was a franchisor side of things, we had 120 franchisees doing about $1.5 million a month in business. And there was some really, really good franchisees and some really terrible franchisees. And part of that was not following the blueprint. But the other part is really not managing their money, their expectations properly. So, making sure, as a business owner, and when you first start a business and you're successful, you feel like you have, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I have this influx of cash, right? And it's like, man, and I'll tell you from experience, I owned an insulation company. Back in the day, I was like 18 when I started it. It went great. I was one of the first people in Wisconsin to air seal homes, and I just had this influx of cash, and I bought toys. I bought, I would take my employees to the local casino, and we'd go spend $3,000-$4,000 just because I was just young and dumb.
Yeah.
I had all this money, and I felt like it was going to last forever. Until one day, someone broke into my garage, stole about $20,000 worth of my equipment. I didn't have insurance on the equipment, and I didn't have the money to replace it. And I was like, "That's it. I'm done. Now what?" So I couldn't do some jobs for a local company that was subcontracting me to do their work for them. So they found somebody else because I couldn't complete the work in a timely manner, and I lost the business, and it sucked. Thank God they luckily bought me out a little bit, right? So I ended up selling my business to them, but man, it was disappointing and it was disheartening. And I failed because one, I didn't have a blueprint to follow, and two, because I felt like I could do whatever I wanted. So being fiscally responsible is huge. And if you have a blueprint to follow it. And if you don't, go talk to people like you, like Seth, like Matt. I mean, just people in the industry that know some things, have gone through the 6 or 7 years of heartaches and learn from them. Man.
And you said that, the business failed, but overall, looking back at what you learned from that experience and how you could took that to your next career, like it was just an experience. Yeah, it might have failed looking back at it, but that failure turned into an experience that taught you the right ways and made you even better in business in the future.
I agree, man. You either fail or you fail forward.
Yep.
Failing forward is huge for me, man. There's many things that I've tried and failed at.
Me too.
Man, there's billionaires in the world that have started hundreds of businesses that have failed.
Yep.
But if you're always failing forward, you're doing the right thing. If we're not failing, you're not trying hard.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I feel like I fail like once a week still at something, but just starting back over, trying it again. When you were on the corporate side of it, right, and you're selling franchises and like opening multiple locations like that, how did you go and find those people? Did they have like a lead list for you to go capture these people, or are you driving around like knocking on doors, talking to current business owners? What does that look like? Tell me that experience.
The commercial cleaning company that we were selling franchises for is a world-renowned company. I mean, heavily involved in sports, PGA, racing. So it was a pretty well-advertised business. And it was most of the time they would cuss. As far as the commercial cleaning contracts, on the other hand, those were go out and get them stuff. So we had a sales department. I was in the operations side of things. I wasn't in sales at the time. It's when I found out that I really wanted to go into sales, because there was
Money.
I was maybe 3 months into the business, and I was overseeing. Man, I could tell you some stories about that industry, but there were days that most of days it was get up at 6, go to work till 5, go back home, eat some dinner, kiss the kids and wife, go back out into the field with your franchisees, because most commercial cleaning happens at night.
Yeah.
And go out there and help your franchisees be successful. So we go out and find these commercial cleaning contracts. Sorry to get off track there.
Very good.
Well, we go out and find these commercial cleaning contracts, knock doors, all that fun stuff. I was on the operations side of things, so I was more in line of inspecting the accounts, and making sure that our franchisees were following our MOS, our minimum operating standards. So, but I found out that I had a knack for sales and that I wanted to do sales. There were a couple of months, maybe a month into my career there, where my sales, even as an operations manager, I outsold our entire sales department. While they were knocking doors every day, that was their job to go and knock doors every day.
Yeah.
Mine was to not do that. And so there were a couple months where I outsold our entire sales department. And that's ultimately why I ended up leaving. I asked to either go into sales, or I asked for basically $1 an hour raise.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up going to this industry. Like I said, man, I'm so happy.
Yeah. It's crazy, the stories that we have that make you like what your past, like the path that it creates for you to end up in the industry, the ultimate end up in. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, it's incredible.
What is the most important piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Man, that's a great question, Jonas. There are many, many things that I've been told in my life, that I hold dearly. My last boss, probably in business anyways, one of the most important business, pieces of advice that I got, was that your people are everything.
Yeah.
And he lived that. He truly did. And he fired me, and I have zero resentment towards him. I will talk to him today and shake his hand today. But I absolutely felt that from him, and I hope that all of my employees feel that from me. Your people are everything. Without them, your business will never be anything more than you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's incredibly important to me is the people around me and the people that show up every day to help achieve my dream. I mean, that's pretty powerful when someone else is there to help you achieve your dream.
For sure. When do you actually open up your second location? Do you know?
So I'm in the process right now. I'm hoping that the deal is done by the 15th of this month. Cool. And I can open the doors thereafter.
Are they already operating there, or is it starting from scratch?
This is a start from scratch franchise.
Are we be living in tents
again?
I don't know.
What's that?
Are we going to be living in tents again?
It's a possibility. Nothing's out of the question, man.
Yeah.
We are talking about Southern Michigan, so we're getting pretty rural in parts of it. But once you start getting towards the coast of Lake Michigan, there you're looking pretty good. But yeah, man, to my knowledge, that area is a lot of vacation homes along the lake there and things like that. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I'm trying to get the doors open before the spring lake houses open back up for the season. So
do you have like a successor that's taken your current location?
No. So the good news is that South Bend and the Benton Harbor location really just meet up with each other. Okay, so cool. Basically, currently I own the rights to do business all the way up to the Michigan Indiana border, and then now I'm just kind of naturally growing beyond that point.
So does it go by like zip codes, or does it go by population that they give you for a territory?
It's zip codes and the price of your franchise, or you got different sizes. You got A, B, C, D, double B, all that fun is based on your population size in those zip codes.
And then how long of a term do you have to typically sign when you like open up a new franchise? Is it 5 years, 10 years?
It's a 7-year term. My franchise agreement is for 7 years. Okay. So with obviously you can extend it at the end of 7 years if you've done everything that you need to do. There's one of the coolest parts about Critter Control is that they have a buyback program where corporate is set up to, purchase before you've ever even opened your doors. So they say, hey, listen, if you run your franchise right and we want it back, let's say corporate wants that location and territory back, we're willing to buy it back at this dollar amount at minimum.
Yeah.
Or this many pennies per dollar,
cool.
or whatever the case may be. But that's a really incredible part about Critter Control too, is that corporate has a buyback program on it. So you can run it for 7 years. You do it successful. Corporate wants it back. You sail off into the sunset and on to the next adventure. If not, if they don't want it or you don't want to sell it, and then you have the option to renew at that point and keep going. Usually, I think it's a 10-year renewal thereafter. So it's 7 and then 10, I believe.
So when you opened up your second franchise, did they discount it for you or not at all?
They can. They do have a multi-franchise discount. So I'm not going to. I don't want to speculate and say they do it for everybody, but I believe they can. I believe they do offer a multi-franchise or a multi-location discount.
That's super awesome. What are you most proud of in your business career?
Man. I'm most proud of building the team that I have around me, man. It's crazy. I've got 2 guys that moved from Wisconsin, uprooted their entire life and moved to Indiana for me to go down there and help this business be successful. 3 technically, one of them being my cousin. So to have a team that is that devoted to me and to my vision and to the business, man, I can't say enough about those guys. They truly are a blessing. And the couple of guys that we've onboarded that live in that area are incredible too. They share our passion. They share our vision. They uphold our company standards and our mission. So I'm grateful to have built a good team so far.
It's awesome. You're a good dude. So they just naturally come towards you. What does Shane's next 3 to 5 years look like?
Well, my 5-year goal is to own at least 3 locations. So depending on what opportunities are brought to the table, I'm hoping that I can open up a 3rd location within the next 5 years. That'll probably happen sooner than that. And I'm hoping I end up with 6, right?
Yeah.
Goal wise, I'm thinking another one in the next 5 years is a good goal to have.
Cool.
We're on pace right now in our first year in business to do $1 million. So my goal for year 1, I want to be top. We have franchise awards banquets at the end of every year. So I should begin, they have a top dog award for each, franchise size A through double D or whatever it is. I'm going to be top dog. That's it, man.
Sick. I love that.
I have a competitive spirit. I grew up, as I think we talked about it. I grew up wrestling from the time I was 2 through high school. I know your coach and your daughter wrestles, so that's awesome. And so and I grew up playing a bunch of other sports. I'm a pretty competitive person. So that's really what drives me is I always want to be in that number 1 spot. And if I'm there, I want to keep besting myself. So that's year 1 goal, be top dog. Year 2, 3, 4, 5, continue to be that person and just grow and provide opportunities for others, man. I come from humble backgrounds. I'm not a silver spoon baby. I'm not a trust fund baby by any means. I had a single dad raising me and my 3 sisters by himself. So I don't come from anything other than hard work and grit. So it's to be able to provide viable opportunities for people that might not, have gone to college but still want to make $80,000 a year. Yep. Like, let's go, man. Let me show you the way.
Yep. I agree.
So I love being able to provide those opportunities.
Cool. Well, Shane, you have an amazing story, and again, I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today.
Oh man, I appreciate you guys having me on. It's the story is great. It's just beginning. I can't wait to see what my team does in the next 3 to 5 years. I'm excited. I'm excited to see you guys grow. I'm excited to see James grow here in Wisconsin, man. I'm stoked for him.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked for you and all your team as well.
Cool. Like I said, it's been a fun journey the last year or so watching you and you become successful, and it's super cool. And again, thanks for taking the time to spend with us today, and really appreciate your friendship. And I can't wait to see you in the next 3 to 5 years hitting your goals.
Absolutely, man. You too. Thanks so much.
Of course.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the Pest Control Millionaire Podcast. If this was valuable to you, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It really makes a big difference for our growth. And if you do need any help growing your business, go ahead and check out pestcontrolmillionaire.com. We have lots of courses up there, from sales to operations. I have some courses there about producing short form content. Plus, we have a mentorship program where you can get one-on-one business coaching from the Pest Control Millionaire himself. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.